politics right now on HMPTV. And the reason we're here today is something very, very important, which is very, very necessary and very, very relevant at right this particular time. And that is a party. The general parties that we have here in the UK do not represent the interests of black people. For years, people thought Labour was black people's party, the party for black people. But when you go in depth, and if you check across the content of this platform, we explore that a lot deeper and a lot further in regards to how these political parties work. But the key and the crux of it should really be to represent our own interests, have our own party. And this is something which has been spoken about before. There was earlier inceptions of it. I think you had the African People's Parliament or something like that. And that was really a very Pan-African based looking to create a political party. You know, I had certain criticisms of that, and I feel a political party has to have a much wider scope and appeal to a much wider demographic. So it can't be specifically Pan-African, or definitely can't wear that as a garb at its front face. So I'm here with Dean Okai. Now, Dean Okai has spoke about many, many political issues, and not just political, but business and all these various components what come together in creating a structure and a mainframe for black people to be able to, reach their potential. And the key is for ultimately liberation, to be liberated completely, to have complete freedom and control of your own destiny. While living in other people's lands, obviously they have parties which represent the people. Being part of the people and being part of the community here, we should have a party which represents ourselves, which is integrated into mainstream society and has the same rights and practices to be able to exercise what is necessary for our communities. And it starts off from lower politics all the way up to the cabinet. So we'll be exploring a lot of this on HMPTV. But at this particular moment, we're going to discuss with Dean Okai very quickly the launch or the new initiative of the Initiative Party. So, Dean, welcome to the platform. I don't know why I'm saying welcome to the platform. The bread's all over the platform, which is a pleasure. So thank you for your work thus far. But tell us a little bit about the Initiative Party and why it's necessary. And is it your brainchild or a consortium's brainchild?
It's not my brainchild at all. My thing is to come in and get in where I fit in. And because I put my head above the parapet, I'm someone who was recognized as pulling all of these talents together in these initiatives. So it was very easy once the institution was incorporated to bring my base along because they've been waiting. We're the forgotten people. Everybody takes our votes for granted. Labour believe that they have an inherited vote. Conservatives don't care one way or the other. Lib Dems will pretend. And they're liberals right up until the point where we should have a voice. And there are others whose rights will supersede ours when they may not be even an issue in society. So if you were in LGBTQ+, this is your sexuality, but our race is how we are determined and dealt with in society. Whereas by your sexuality, if you're a European man, you're a European man, and you could choose to expose that or not. And for you to be prejudiced by that is very hard, unless you choose to divulge it. We divulge as a byproduct of who we are. So we don't have those options. So we've been here en masse for 70 years. So let's say we've been here by invitation for 70 years, irrespective of Equianu and all of those who came before him. We were here by invitation for 70 years to build this island. And you could go back to the 60s to a documentary called Coffee Colored People and say, just because you invite them to build a shed in your backyard doesn't mean you want them to stay. Which is why the islands have so-called independence, which isn't really independence. It was to give them a passport which was their own, which means you can't travel here as a subject of the United Kingdom anymore. So we've never established the political vehicle to represent our interests. Now, although that may also cover wider interests because we're left out, we need something that very specifically deals with our unique needs. So the fact that schools will teach sensitivity around sexuality, which children aren't even sure they've developed yet, but not taught race sensitivity, and there's no race sensitivity on the curriculum, tells you about our invisibility, which is benign neglect. So once we understand that we're natural byproducts and victims of benign neglect, the question comes into play, what are we going to do? And then it's incumbent on us who are capable to actually do something about it. Because you can only complain so long. And then it turns into a talking shop. And that's what WhatsApp groups are for, to be fair. They are psychological pillows where we can just vent. And
I just wanted to catch something in regards to what you mentioned about talking shops.
Absolutely.
In the inception of this party, how could we inform the listeners that this isn't a talking shop? And so the reason we're here today is to find out, some of the caliber of the people who are involved, some of their backgrounds, because, with any form of political discourse, it's how well, and especially in today's world, it's the personality. What is their background? What is their background? What do they do? What is their mindset? What is their skill factor to bring to the table? We see a cabinet of people in what we consider mainstream politics, and we think, how do these people get here? And we know as black people, we're going to be far more scrutinised by our own. Which is in some cases a good thing. It means you're on top of your P's and Q's and handle your business correctly. So tell us a little bit about the Initiative Party and how that's going to be different from anything we may have had before, if it is.
Absolutely. So the Initiative Party is focusing on three main areas, which is education, empowerment, and then enterprise. You see, there's a pipeline there. So once you are educated, as opposed to being indoctrinated to be a cog in the wheel, which is disintegrating because technology is getting rid of a lot of these roles that our so-called education has prepared us for or not prepared us for. The empowerment comes from our education because we're aware of our choices and aware of our options. And then enterprise is how we create more employment. And you've got to be creating enterprise that is relevant to the marketplace. Who are the people on board? I won't go into individual names, but this is how our MBEs, our OBEs, our doctors come into play around one vehicle. Because we've always failed. We work in isolation so much in our little pockets, which is why we can't develop any kind of community sustainability or cohesion. But what this does is create cohesion based on the preeminent minds in any particular area. So it may be housing, health, and trade and enterprise, economics. And once you have the preeminent minds in those areas, they are working as a cabinet within those particular areas based on qualification, based on skill sets. Look, you can be an Etonian, just like you can be a tribal leader and then through nepotism become a president in a particular nation. But tribalism and nepotism aren't the best qualifications for leadership. And I can't talk too long because we're in the middle of workshops right now. But what I will say is this party is about your ability to function and execute. It's not about nepotism. It's not about tribalism. We all belong to tribes, and the particular caliber of person the Initiative Party has attracted are all highly driven, highly successful in their own field, and motivation by demonstration for those who are working around them. And I say demonstration because there's no substitute for experience. We have a lot of hyperbole based around what we would like it to be, what we think it should be. Demonstration tells you what it should be by practice. And if it's not that, then it's intellectual masturbation, and we don't need any more of that.
One last quick question before you shoot off back to the workshops. Obviously, it's a party which deals with the issues for the black community. But this is where I was going to go. But with any party, to get the numbers, I mean, and I feel this generally, I think that as African people, once we're balanced in the position that we are, I think that we can change what politics is. Absolutely. You can see a new degree of ethical politics, which doesn't just work for black people, but works for individuals who want something better than the tired old way. And once they can get over the race issue and realize that maybe the faces what represent them may not be the face of the country, but they are the face of ethical fairness for all involved, I think we really have an opportunity to change the way politics is. And I think we lead it by taking leaps and bounds and strides in our own community and better in our own community, where people are able to see the visible works of that, and then people want the same for theirs, and we're able to get involved. So is it for us or for them?
This is me. So this is me wrapping up because I'm being called back into the workshops. So what I will say is, if you provide clean water, and there are people who may despise you initially, and you do that on a daily basis, consistency, because everything we do experiences a compound effect. And over there is dirty water from somebody they love. They're going to start to work based on critical thinking, health, sustainability, and this is just what it is. And that's how we compete. We compete based on function of what we can provide, which is pure, as opposed to that which is polluted, which has, if you want to look at what this system is, it's a snake that is arse deep in its own tail. It's not sustainable because the beast is so greedy that it's consuming its own tail. And the minute people actually have a cognitive understanding of that, because there is an alternative and they're made aware of their options, it becomes self-preservation, and that's it.
Self-preservation, and that's what this party is about. So we're definitely going to be following up and keeping you up to date with exactly what's going on with the initiative party, its developments, and eventually how you can get involved. But we will be following that journey from beginning to end, and critiquing and praising, because we would love to see the development of a party. So when you go to the ballot box, there's someone who looks like you, represents your interests. And, I really believe that those interests will create a fairer society once given the opportunity. With that, thank you very much, Dean. I'm here with Mr. Charles Gordon. Now, we are at I've used the term launch, but it's not necessarily a launch. It's more workshops, building, getting to understand ideas, information around the Initiative Party, which is a new initiative, a political party which is in the process of coming into existence. So tell me, Charles, a little bit of why you're here today and your interest in politics and especially the Initiative Party.
Okay, so my reason for being here today was, effectively the Initiative Party was my brainchild. Reason being that I've kind of been involved in life and in business generally I've been in business since I was 19 years old. And one of the things and I've done relatively well through business, and one of the things that I observed was that we're living in a society where we don't have a say on what happens within that society. And over the years, I've done relatively well. So the thought process was that it's about giving back and kind of making changes within that community. And I kind of looked and I thought, well, what are the options? The only way to actually implement any change within the community is to effectively become a member of Parliament. And then I looked at the Labour side of things and I thought, right, well, they don't really represent what I'm about. And then I had a look at the Conservative side of things. I thought, well, they don't really represent what I'm about either. Labour represent kind of poorer people, Conservative represent richer people. But there was no one who represented me, the guy in the middle who had kind of done it on his own, that kind of setup. So I kind of, the thought process was, we'll establish a party which effectively is bedded in business. So our ethos and our attitude is all around business. It's not about a hand out, it's about a hand up. So our objectives are to help people to achieve their goals, almost like the American dream, but in the UK, to establish, just to help them with funding, help them with business. We'll be doing courses which will teach people about property investment, how to learn, how to understand, just how to help themselves, basically. And that's why it's called the initiative, or taking the initiative, because our objective is to help people to help themselves. That's our whole ethos is about. And the reason for me was, with the initiative thing generally, was more a case of I didn't want to be in a place where I go to Conservative, because even then you're almost begging them for a seat at their table. And once you get the seat at their table, the problem you've then got is if you implement a policy that they're not overly happy with, they can kick you off their table, you know. Whereas if you create your own table, then ultimately you have a say and you can be confident and comfortable about voicing your opinion. And I think in a society that we live in, that ultimately we spend millions and millions in taxes, we should ultimately have a say on the things that affect and impact us. And I think there isn't enough of that, and no one seems to have taken any steps to do that. So I kind of took the responsibility upon myself to instigate that and make it happen. They say it only takes a grain of sand to move an island, and the thought process was, let's do it, let's build it, and then we can develop it from there and see how the whole thing pans out. I mean, we've been very, very impressed with the support. I'm very impressed with the ideas that came out of today. I mean, one of the core things we were looking at today was establishing kind of the key essence of things that need to be addressed by the party, making sure that when we produce our manifesto, we cover off the issues of people. So we needed to kind of get the think tanks together, get the ideas together, and just understand what people's real problems are. And then the other thing is our main essence is in getting the business side of things done. The other thing is community and establishing and helping people to build a community. You've got MPs for Peckham, Lewisham that have never even so much as lived in the borough. They don't know anything about the issues. They don't know anything about the problems people are having within those boroughs. And those are largely ethnic minorities within those boroughs. But the truth of the matter is their local MP doesn't care, you know. And so the thought process was, in what we're doing, the objective was to kind of get people from the community to represent the community. So when they're talking about issues, they understand the issues, do you see, as opposed to just someone who's been to Oxford and Harvard University, or wherever they call them over here, or Cambridge, and they don't have any clue about what goes on within the local boroughs and what goes on within, or what the issues are of that community. So the thought process was, let's establish a foothold and establish a seat at the table where we can have a conversation about things that impact us and be able to have a say about things that impact us. Because a lot of the problems within the communities they stem from the community, and the community has the solution. But someone you parachute in is never going to be in a position to even identify the problem, let alone have a solution for it.
I was going to say, in 2012, there was a study came out, I think from Nottingham University, and it basically drawn the conclusion that the only reason the black community is surviving is because of community empowerment, because we don't really get the funds, or a ring fence for us. We don't get allocated the funds. So if it wasn't for the community services, what people are doing unpaid, unfunded, voluntarily, you know, our community would be in a lot worse shape. So just very, very quickly, do you have a kind of timeline for the party in regards to when you want to actually, you know, launch and public become aware that you exist?
I mean, to be fair, things are moving probably a bit quicker than even I had anticipated, to be fair. I mean, what I found is that there's a massive appetite for it, which to be honest, I wasn't fully aware of the level of appetite for it and the level of support that seems to have come into play quite quickly. So I think things are moving quicker than I anticipated. So I'd say within the next 3 to 6 months, we'll be looking to make waves. I mean, there was conversations around trying to get people in play for the London Assembly. I don't know if we're going to achieve those goals, but my thing is, from an entrepreneurial aspect, not from a political aspect, is it's about getting the job done. So we look at the problem and we work out how to solve it. So we're still embryonic stages, but to be fair, all the hard work's already been done. So now it's just a case of representation, marketing, and so on and so forth. The London Assembly is a big stretch, because I know we're looking at 90,000 votes in order to, and it's not a lot of time to build up that level of support. But I do think that it's important that we just start getting a voice, and it's not the politics is only a small aspect of what we're here to do. That's our seat at the table, but ultimately it is about empowering. It is about our objectives are, we're going to be doing effectively events once a month, but there'll be events that go down to educating people in property management, educating people in financial management, networking events, helping people to understand the importance of networks. I mean, you mentioned a point earlier. Sorry, I wanted to address it actually. You mentioned that the communities are built in relation to empowerment within the community because they don't get funding. But again, once we've got a seat at the table, we can then get access to that funding. Do you see what I mean? The reason why we don't get the funding, it's not because it's not there. I mean, for businesses in Europe, etc., they send billions to the UK to invest in business, and it doesn't ever get seen or even acknowledged or even anywhere near the people that need the money and that can set up the businesses. So the thought process was, again, once we're at the table, we've got that access. And once we've got that access, we're then in a position to say, all right, do you know what? You want to set up this TV company? We can help you. There's £10,000 to go and buy your equipment. Do you see what I mean? And
I'd rather you don't do that. We don't need more competition.
Okay, well, one of the good things is we'll be able to manage and monopolise where relevant, just like they do. I think, the overall objective is just to try and assist. I think ultimately the more opportunities we create for ourselves within the communities, the more wealth we keep within the communities, and then we deal with community issues. Do you see what I mean? And I think that's a major part of what needs to be done in order to kind of solve the problems moving forward. Yeah.
Of course. Well, we'd really like to thank you for giving us some insight. I was actually trying to find out whose initiative was the initiative party. So I'm glad I actually collared you towards the end. So, but no, it's great understanding why. And as I said, the importance of black media is to be able to support these initiatives, because you can't be what you cannot see. So our job is to take, and it's something which we've never really had in our community before, but with technology making equipment far much cheaper, much more accessible, technology allowing, but I'm very much like yourself, build your own thing. I'll build my own chair and come to the table. A lot of people said to me, why don't you get involved and become a subsidiary of some of the bigger? And I said, well, then I'm going to be under control. And, once again, you can't control your narrative. You can't. It means if I said I wanted to work the initiative party, I'd have someone telling me, no, you're going to go and cover the Labour conference. And we don't. We want to be able to work.
That was SBTV. Yeah, they did well. They built a massive platform, got bought out. Where are they now? Exactly. Do you see what I mean? And sometimes they only do it to silence you.
No, I mean, I've been told that they're coming. They will be coming for what we're building. But I'm of Dean Okai's ilk. I'm of that. I come from that kind of background where I am unshakable. I live and breathe the skin that I'm in, and I care very much. I've got children who. What I live for, like, most other people. So it's very important. I understand the importance of legacy, holding on to the things that you create. Even the way that I've created a business. If I did want partnership, how understand what I can hold on to, what I'm willing to give away, and those aspects of business. But especially with media, because that's the thing they do not want us to have, because they know that informs everything else.
That's why they've controlled it for so many years. It was only a short space of time ago we had 4 channels. Exactly. And BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, were very specific about what they put out and how they managed our profiles and how they managed us, and more importantly, how they managed people's perception of us. And these are all images and basically stereotypes that we need to break in order to move forward. I mean, they're happy for us to have music videos. They're happy for us to have sport. We're not supposed to be having entertainment networks. We're not supposed to be having businesses. It's not that, because that ultimately impacts and messes with the whole hierarchy in their view, or the white supremacy, the images that they create. And I think it's important that we just start to make our own moves and start to create our own. And ultimately, there is strength in numbers. Do you see what I mean? And we need to unite under one banner. Do you see what I mean? And ultimately get the job done. The Initiative Party, I'd like to emphasise, it's not a black party. It's a party that's founded in business and community, but we empathise with black positions, black people, and we empathise with the struggles of black people, and ultimately our objective is to ensure that we have a better future as black people.
And thank you very much for that. I was speaking with Dean at one of our initial interviews, and we were saying the importance of having a party which is representative to all people. There's good and bad people, and we're basically saying, look, good people, come here. We have got an opportunity to do things as African people, differently. Bring our degree of ethics into it, or our spirituality, or the things what make us us. Especially, it's like, people see what happened with the Jewish Holocaust, and now see the treatment of African people in Israel at the moment, which makes you think. Whereas, I think through what we've been through, we still remain at our essence, the core of who and what we are, a very spiritual people, very forgiving people, very loving people. If that can manifest in our politics, it can work for all. You know, and as long as people can get over the faces which they see initially, forwardly, but we represent, you know, the best virtues of humanity to bring that forward.
There's 2 points I want to give on that. One, in relation to what people see, there's every image, every perception can be corrected, can be fixed. And my view has simply been, and in business across the board, is deal with people as you want to be dealt with. Like, all you've got to do in this world is do what you say you're going to do. Have some core values and stick to them. Do you see what I mean? And as a political party, we are black, white or indifferent. If you're honest and you do what you say you're going to do, people will ultimately respect you. Do you see what I mean? And that's what this comes down to. It's not about, don't get me wrong, there's loads of reasons why not. And I could probably come up with 100 and you could probably add another 5,000 to it. But the objective isn't about that. What we've got to do is do what we say we're going to do and ultimately deliver. And once we do that, people will have to respect us, similarly to any other race, religion or creed. At the end of the day, we've just got to do the job that we set out to do and do it well. Do you see what I mean? Don't half step, don't do it by any loose standards. Do you see what I mean? Because ultimately in business, colour doesn't come into it as much because it's based on whether or not you're a professional, whether or not you handle yourself properly, whether or not you deal properly. And I can't see that this should be any different. Do you see what I mean? Now, ultimately, yes, it is going to pose a threat to the essence of the system, but ultimately they still have to respect us. And as long as we're not burning down the Houses of Parliament and things like that, I don't know what reason it just. Yeah, and that's it. And ultimately, I think they have to respect that within us. It's just how we approach the situation that I think is relevant in order to get the job done. And that's what this is about. It's not about anything else apart from getting the job done. We want to know that within our communities, our kids are safe. Do you see what I mean? We want to offer them opportunities. We want to teach them the foundations of where they're coming from and what they can achieve. But we won't be able to do that unless we get to the table and have a say on what's happening in our communities. I don't vote. So this is strange for me when people are talking about going, I've never voted. Reason why I've never voted is because it don't make no difference. Whereas if you give me a reason to vote, if you give me someone that I can trust and I believe in, then why wouldn't I vote? I'd be stupid not to vote. And when you look at how many people don't vote, because it isn't impacting on their lives, all we've got to do is show them that we will help them. And then do it. Don't just talk about doing it, do it. Physically deliver on what we say we're going to do. And that's, for me, is the key in anything I do in life. Don't talk about it, be about it. Get the job done. Do you see what I mean?
And this is why you have business in politics. Okay, there's an ethos in business which gets things done. And the great thing about politics is the art, you know, as once explained to me, but politics is the art of getting things done. So, you know, they go hand in hand. But if you've got people who are kind of very much savvy and understand these principles, whereas in today's politics, they can pluck up anybody with a qualification and they can go enter career politics, and it's not the thing. So, as we've said, you know, we have an opportunity for something different. We've got a totally different initiative. HMPTV, Helping My People to Live, will be following very, very closely. We'll be keeping contact, keeping our ear to the ground, and working as closely as we can with the Initiative Party in order to be able to unreach you, so people understand what their mandates, what their policies, you know, the kind of things what they'll be doing, where representation will be, and so forth. Because it's very important that politics and media do work hand in hand. But now we've got politics and media where some of the people with their freckles are a little bit closer. Greetings. I'm here with Asari St. Hill, a business coach extraordinaire, and has 2 shows on HMPTV, Mind Your Business and Build a Better Business. We're here today at the first get-together of people who are interested in creating a political party that represents the interests of black people and the black community here in the UK. And it's about time we started to, instead of going to the normal parties to get the normal answers and the normal responses, what we've gone through here. I remember watching it when I was a young lad, into my teenage years, into now as an adult, and just watching the same cycle of politics go round and round. And I think it's definitely a new time for something different. And I think there's a desire for something different. So, Asari, you're a business coach. And, you know, part of the political discourse and part of what is necessary is an understanding of business. You know, even the financing of parties to be able to carry on with the work that they need to do to campaign requires a financial element and understanding. So it's a very key component. tell me, what is your interest in the Initiative Party, and what would you like to see of a African, Caribbean-based party here in the UK?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I'm torn a bit in a couple of areas, but I think it's great initiative to be able to go to politicians or go to the wider political society and say, this is what we want, this is the sort of things we would like to see, whether it's housing, education, whatever. And I also think that it's important that we build bridges and coalitions with other people who want the similar things to what we want, wherever community they're from. But I do think that business is a fundamental part of it, or understanding finances, as you mentioned, and that a sustainable base for it can be just membership based, to be honest. Just paying a monthly fee, I think, is more than enough, just like the church or the tithe or whatever, of doing it. But I think it's really important that we educate people on how to open businesses, how to start businesses, but also I think there's another thing where you can overemphasize businesses as well, where everybody's going to have a business, which I think is impractical. But I do think we should think about sustainable business models and how we can network and do things like BNI and other networking ways to build communities together. We just heard a conversation there about people in London and not trading with people in Liverpool and things like that, because communities don't necessarily think in that way. But then again, there's somebody on the same street isn't trading with the next door neighbour because there's no network. So I don't think you even need to go to another city. I don't think people even trading in the same trading estate. So I think things like BNI and networking and encouraging people to have a network, whether it's the directory type routes, but encouraging people to trade with each other locally and do business with each other locally, I think is a critical part of it, as well as encouraging people to open businesses. Because the sustainability of it is a big thing. You encourage someone to open business, they give up their job, and then next thing they're losing their house. So you got to be careful encouraging people to do business. So the more sustainable that we can support that by saying, look, here's a network called BNI, or here's a network called whatever, and we can help you connect with other people so the business is more likely to survive.
Does politics play a key role in business creation? And the reason I would say that, if you look at the Asian communities, and they're very politically motivated, so therefore they get into the councils, they go into, it starts off from the schools, and how they get involved in the schools, they get involved in local council, and within local council they're able to influence decision, zoning, parking, for businesses, because they're much more business minded. Do you think having political clout will then assist the business clout? And that's something which was put together also by I think Neely Fuller Jr. or Dr. Claude Anderson. I think he has a kind of template which he uses, and politics and business are practically side by side, or one in front of the other. But for that key purpose, what would you say about that?
I'd say it's absolutely the case. There's no such thing as a free market anywhere in the world. There's no free markets. Every single one is governed by governments. And governments regulate how much the state or the private sector is allowed to do whatever it is allowed to do, and who gets taxed and who doesn't get taxed, who gets a tax incentive, what rents people pay. All these things are regulated to less or more extent. So I think, yes, politics governs everything. So if you can influence government to empower cooperatives, empower smaller businesses, and not just empower big business and big private individuals, then I think, yeah, that is something to campaign for, because I don't think there's enough politicians really supporting the ordinary business in the street, the kind of local businesses, and giving them opportunities. So like rents is just killing the retail at the moment, and they're not doing much about it. So I think there's a lot that you can do. Yes, if you organise and you can get political, yes, you can affect tremendously what sort of policy is to support businesses. Even having coaches or having support for businesses and education for businesses, there used to be some support, it's all gone. So you set up a business, you're encouraged by the state to set up a business, all your benefits are stopped, everything's stopped, and then overnight you're scrambling a little bit to find a way of living. So I think if you're going to encourage people to open a business, you need to give them a bit of support to how to make it work. Otherwise, and also the other thing with politics as well is maybe when people move from work to business, a transitional period. So people don't lose access to everything overnight. So you literally go from working to broke. And without a transitional period where you maybe can access certain services or you can access certain things. So there's almost like an incubator period where you can develop the business.
Okay. And finally, we're talking about a party and the development and creation of a party. But also, it's very important in regards to the people that the party are reaching out to, that they are savvy and have an understanding of politics, because we haven't really grasp politics. Even the average voter just goes and votes. They see policies, think this will work for me. I don't really study manifestos and really look into the background, the history, and how this benefits them and their families, especially for the long term. So how important is it in regards to, and this is the whole point of why we're doing this here, to educate the voter?
I think it's vital, actually. I think political education is a critical thing. People talk about economic education, but I think you need political education. Just basic education. I was lucky. I did A-level government and politics, and I studied British history at school, so I had a very good understanding of the system and how it worked. And I worked in public sector for 25 years, so I really understand how the system works. So I think it's important that, and Brexit has demonstrated this, that people keep saying people didn't know what they voted for. I think people did know what they were voting for. And because people disagree, they say you didn't know what you were voting for, but that means the other team didn't know what they were voting for either. But I think, an educated, if you educate the people about politics so they understand the mechanisms of government, it's more likely ordinary people will vote in their own interests. And to me, that's just simple. The more ignorant the ordinary person is, the easier it is for other people to control what happens. Because I always find it interesting that a lot of people in the African Caribbean community say, I'm not voting. Why should I vote? And actually, I think a different view. I think if you're in a large scale don't vote, people don't take you serious because they know, well, if you're not going to vote, well, why are we worried about what they think? And I think that I'm not saying you should just give away your vote, but if you educate people and they can be organised about using their vote strategically, politicians will come queuing up saying, we need to deal with that agenda, because if that group's going to vote on a block, well, we're not voting for you unless we hear something that's voting for what we want to do. And I think that's how we can educate people around saying, it's not just, you're not just a lemming, just saying, oh, well, we'll just vote for whoever. You can actually organise yourself as a block and say, well, we've got these 1 million votes. You come and bid to us to say who wants them, because we want these policies. Unless you're implementing them, we ain't voting for you. So I think that's where you can have power from the voters.
Cool. Well, make sure you keep it locked to HMPTV. Make sure you keep it locked to the politics on HMPTV. We will be keeping you up to date with, whatever political issues are going on, and keeping a very close eye to what's going on here with the Initiative Party, so that when it's ready to start representing its community, you'll be the first to know about it. With that, Sari, thank you very much. Do check out Asari on the platform, Mind Your Business, and build a better business, and you'll be able to check out the links and go straight to him. And if you need him as your business coach, he's fantastic, because he's been behind the scenes and a lot of the stuff you see behind the scenes here at HMPTV. With that, free plug there. With that, we're out of here. That's some good quality.